I wanted to cry and scream, but I couldn't. Inside my head, I was continuously praying that something good happens.
Farid Ahmed's words of forgiveness were heard around the world following a terror attack in Christchurch, New Zealand.
I want a heart that will be full of love and will forgive lavishly.
His words and stories offer both healing and hope for the future.
If our heart is full of love, then peace will start from here.
Episode 48, The Honeymoon Scare.
So what happened? We stayed a day, extra day in Auckland after our Islamic way of marriage, and then we decided to travel from Auckland to Nelson on the road. So I rented a car, and I thought that it would be a nice trip for Husna, so she can look around and see two sides of the highway, and it will be a fun. So I had another friend with me. He was from Hastings, so he could drive, I could drive, and Husna was new. So we thought it would be a nice trip. But after an hour or so, we realized, it was not nice, because she was not handling the journey at all. So she was very uncomfortable. She has, she had sickness, motion sickness, and she was quite uncomfortable. So every half an hour or 1 hour, we had to stop. I had to carry her, allowing her to be in the non-moving situation. It was very, very tough. And then almost all the way, I had to look after her. At that point, I realized that it would have been easier to buy air ticket and come down to Nelson quickly, but it didn't happen. So I asked my friend to continue driving so I could look after her. My friend, he enjoyed his driving, and he was over speeding. So after a month or so, there was a fine in my post, in my letterbox. One mistake after another. But finally, they did not charge me, because when they checked the photo, it was not me. I wasn't driving. So they let me go. But when we came to the ferry, then she was settled. Surprisingly, she was settled, because on the ferry she was enjoying the water. So now imagine her place of living was like hilly Auckland, and her house was on top of a hill. So you have to climb up, and they hardly see water. The sea in Bangladesh, Chittagong, it was very far. So basically, the seawater here was the first time of her experience. And I could see that she was keep watching the waves. And I thought that she was probably connecting her emotion with the waves. 3 hours trip from one side to another side, but most of the time she was watching the water. Yeah, I didn't disrupt her much because I saw her very much immersed into the thoughts. So in between, I asked her, "Did you enjoy?" "Oh, I love it so much." "Okay, at least something you enjoyed." I'm pleased. Yeah, then we came to the Picton, and from Picton we had to drive again. So by the time we were in Picton, it was dark. So we arrived in Nelson around about 8:30 at night, and she was exhausted, very tired. So that was a mistake, unintentional. But when she arrived and I put her in bed, that was the most scary experience I had in my life. Most scary. What happened? I thought that she could rest a bit, and she could remove some of her exhaustion. But as she lied down, she was acting funny. I looked at her and I realized that I needed to call an ambulance. She looked very sick. Her eyes were rolling, face were discolored, and it looked like she was gasping for breath. I got very, very scared, very scared. Her sound was very feeble, and I said, "Don't worry, I'm calling the ambulance." But she held my hand and she pulled me towards her and said with feeble voice, "Don't." I said, "No, I must. No, you just stay." And she was holding me so tight. I was in a dilemma. On one hand, she needed me for her comfort. On the other hand, and I was feeling guilty that I should call the ambulance. But then in between, the very scary thought came that in case something happens, should I lose this moment?
When you've just found her.
So I felt so helpless in those moments. What do I do? On one hand, I need to stay with her if something happens. On the other hand, I should call the ambulance. Plus, on top of it, the worries that if something happens, what am I going to tell the family? I wanted to cry and scream, but I couldn't. Inside my head, I was continuously praying that something good happens. So I decided to stay with her because that's what she wanted. To comfort her, to be with her. So few minutes, about 5-6 minutes, I was looking at her, I was praying. I was, without talking much, I was rubbing her head and I was saying everything will be okay. Take some deep breath. When you feel better, we can go to the hospital. The hospital was only 2-3 minutes away from where we were living. After a few minutes, she opened her eyes. she looked better. Something miracle happened. She was smiling. And I said, how do you feel now? Oh, I'm feeling better. So what happened to you? I don't know. I do not know. So that was a relief. And I thought, okay, maybe soon I could take her for a checkup. But at least for that moment, it looked okay. So that's how my, you could call it my honeymoon. My honeymoon started with mistake about traveling on the road and a scare, big scare.